Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast episode. I don't know, Kyle, as I get closer to 100, they all run together, but we have not hit quite number 100 yet. But this episode of the podcast is cool. It's a little unique. This time of the year, as we get to the fall of the season, we start to have these individual tournaments that represent a full series, and it's a culmination of the year. And this past week, we got to finish up the College Classic bracket where we had 8 anglers fishing individually. And man, did they put on a show. But if you're just joining us for the first time, please like and subscribe, drop a review on the podcast on the Apple platform, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to that and view it. And as always, my co-host today, Jessie. Kyle, like we mentioned, the bracket just finished up, and man, we had some individual hammers that we will see very soon at the next level of Bassmaster tournaments, and plenty of drama to go along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. A stacked field of 8, something that we mentioned, obviously, last podcast or one of our previous podcasts was that half of the field were guys that we predicted early in the year to be guys to look for. So, I mean, definitely guys that had a lot of recognition, definitely some absolute hammers in that event. And they definitely showed out. It was really fun. I know you and I both really enjoy the bracket. Obviously, have experienced a handful of them. I think it's so unique in the way that it plays out in your head-to-head matchups and how things shake out. And these guys really put on a show. And yeah, it was a good bracket.
And so for people who do not know, the way the bracket goes, you have the top 3 finishing teams from the national championship, and then you have the team of the year, basically the Brandon Polnick, the AOY, the MVP team of the season. They won the points race for the whole year. Those are the 4 teams that make the bracket. And the way it's situated out is they even kept the dates of the tournament and the location secret until basically we qualified those anglers from the championship. Then they announced it. So no one fished Lake Greenwood in Greenwood, South Carolina, the entire, month leading up to it. We had one official day of practice. That was Thursday, as Hurricane Ian was brewing in Florida and Georgia. That was Thursday. So they got one day of practice. Friday was supposed to be almost a second day of practice. It was going to be a seeding day where they kind of all compete against each other. The top weight gets the 1 seed and we go down from there. And I really like that aspect of it, Kyle, because, normally seeding teams, we used to do the bracket on the same body of water as the championship. So based on your finishes in the championship, it made sense the way you were seeded because you had just performed better than everyone else there. So there's your seeding, that second best, third best, fourth best. But for a different body of water than the championship venue, it doesn't matter if you win the national championship. There's some respect there, but it's a totally different body of water a couple weeks later. So we were going to have a seeding day, and they were going to be able to figure it out for another day of practice, basically, except these weights counted towards seeding. That didn't happen. Hurricane Ian, a lot of winds mostly. It wasn't as much rain as they thought, but a lot of winds. They decided to just cancel the seeding day, and they seeded it based on team of the year, national champion, second in the championship, third in the championship. And that's how the bracket lined out. So the UNC Charlotte was the 1 and 2 seeds. You had Coastal Carolina, the 3 and 4 seeds. You had Florida Gateway College, the 5 and 6 seeds. And you had McKendree, the 7 and 8 seeds. That provided some incredible matchups from the get-go. And it's always scary, in my opinion, if I'm looking at a group of 8 guys and you have maybe guys who I think the 2 best anglers in the bracket, and they end up getting paired up in round 1 or round 2. They're on the same side of the bracket. They're not 1 and 2 seeds. They're 1 and 5 or, whatever it is. It's kind of a peculiar situation that these guys find themselves in because they now have to face someone with only 1 day of practice and weather changing. And now they've got to go head to head with someone based off of their finishes from the last event.
Yeah. And, last year was the first year, at least that I know of, that we did the seeding deal,
Yes.
like the seeding day. And it was kind of strange because you got the vibe from most of the guys. I was there last year, and I got the vibe that a lot of them didn't really care where they were seated because obviously it mattered to an extent.
It showed up in the 2 of the top 3 seeds. I think McCormick and Tucker were top 3, and they didn't face each other until the finals.
And having been there, I think that was just kind of a result of how it played out, because I know that Tristan did end up fishing some of his stuff that he relied on later in the tournament, but Tucker did not. So, I think it just kind of played out that way by chance, but it was definitely interesting because the matchups, like you said, were set in stone already without the seeding day. So, the guys didn't have to worry about that. But, I would say it probably also was a little bit of a negative towards some of those guys that didn't find a whole lot in practice, because a lot of those guys last year used that more or less as a practice day to try to expand on what you already found, things of that nature. And it, is an even playing field for everybody. So it's not like it's different, but definitely, I'm sure some of those guys that didn't find a whole lot during practice were a little bummed that the seeding day got canceled. But no, it's certainly, like you said, made for some interesting matchups.
Yeah, so we had Saturday, the round of 8, round 1 of this tournament, 4 bracket matchups. They competed. They made it down to the semifinals, which was Sunday. Both of those days were on Fox Sports 1. You get to see a couple hours of the next greatest, from the college series competing head to head. So you had the round of 8, the round of 4, and then Monday was the championship day. 2 anglers on live head to head all day long. And it was very dramatic. There was big fish catches. We saw a 4-pounder every single day, except the final day of the bracket. We saw a 6-pounder on day 2. Louis Monetti had a huge big bag on that day 2. And then it got a little tougher on day 3 for him, but all in all, Lewis was able to win. The one crazy thing is we were both away on Saturday and Sunday from the bracket, and I got to cover it on Monday, and you were producing some of the content there for that event. Seeing Lewis and seeing Seth, they competed head to head all day long. They were going back and forth on the leaderboard after Seth had a pretty good lead at the beginning of the day. They kept just hopping and getting closer, and then the gap would widen back up, and then Lewis ended up catching a key fish to take the lead. That moment that it was lines out, 3 o'clock's done, time to head to the ramp. Hey, what's your interview? How do you feel about your day? Both of the anglers were pretty dejected. Both thought they had lost. And one thing you got to remember, Kyle, is there is a midday weight reveal that we give the anglers. If they want to know what their competitor has, the midday, we have a 10-minute, 15-minute break, and they get to sit there and reflect on their morning. They get to hear how they're doing in the standings, and then they get to proceed on. Well, Louis Monetti said, I don't want to hear the reveal. He declined that. Seth did hear that he had a lead. But when you go throughout the rest of the day, Seth had a couple upgrades. Lewis had a better afternoon for sure and upgraded big time. Both were so dejected. And for the viewers at home, if they did not get to see this, we're going to show this in just a minute. But they were both so dejected as if they had lost. And it was, me and Tommy and Such we didn't talk for 5-6 minutes and just let them vent about they let the bracket slip away, even though one of them didn't let it slip away. So do you enjoy that? You got to see that as well. That's pretty powerful to see the raw emotions of did I just accomplish a goal? I don't think I did.
Yeah, it seems like that happens. Also, another thing, having been to the last 2, it seems like that's always the case. Like there's almost never a case, it seems like, where they both come in and they both know that one guy won, unless that, it's a circumstance where, somebody already had the lead and then the person below him never caught one after it. It seems like that tends to be the trend, but I can only imagine. I've like I said, witnessed that several times, watched it, obviously a lot more than that, even the emotions and like the nervousness. I imagine those 2 guys were just an absolute wreck leading up to that, but no, it was definitely really powerful, and you kind of knew it was coming.
Especially because both anglers caught their worst bag of the week. They kind of set the tone. 10 pounds will get you to the next round, close to that, depending, just a few ounces. Lewis coming off a 16-pound bag, Jackson beating Jackson Swisher, Seth Slanker coming off a almost 10-pound bag, beating Tyler Christie the day before. They both thought, I got to have at least 10 pounds because this is the best competitor of the week. We got to figure this out. We're getting more and more familiar with this body of water. The weights are definitely going to stay at that mark. Didn't happen. So we're going to play this raw for anyone who did not hear or see this, the last 5 minutes or so of the bracket as they kind of reflected on their tournament.
All right, man, how'd you think your day went? How you feeling?
I don't know. It was mixed emotions. Oh, crap. Just nervous wreck. I don't know what to think. There you go. I keep hitting the kill switch off. There we go. Let's try this again. It was a nervous wreck. It's been a rough day. Caught some fish, but had a blast. It's been a great week. Lucky to be here. Can't thank everybody for all the support, and we'll see how it ends up.
Good day.
Thank you.
Fished hard, man. Really been a pleasure, man. It's been awesome.
So as you make your own, tell us, what do you think?
No, I about know I didn't. We definitely didn't do enough. So pretty down, pretty heartbroken. Just wasn't meant to be, you know. I retied that jig on that fish that broke me off. You know, it could have been pound 5 ounces just like that other one, but you know, if it was meant to be, it would have been the one. I don't know. I tell you, it felt like the right one. You know, just tough, real tough. Did what I could. I mean, I think everybody watching, I think you guys in the boat know, we gave it every second. I mean, I believed it would happen all day long. It just wasn't meant to be. So, what are you gonna do? I don't think it's gonna be that dramatic of a finish, unless by some miracle I've been guessing wrong all day. But yeah, that's about all I got.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
It has.
I can let y'all fight the dog.
You guys did a great job today.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, whichever.
Tommy,
Yes, sir.
one angler knew what the weights were, the other did not. They both feel like they didn't get it done.
Right.
That was 3 hours ago, though.
Yeah. Yep, there's nothing you can do about what the other guy had, and there's nothing you can know right now for either one of them,
That,
except what your own weight is.
whew, I'll tell you what, that boat ride right now for Louis Monetti, he will remember it forever as one that he thought was the most disappointing boat ride, quiet running back. And everyone around you is about to burst from emotions to congratulate you, and they can't do it yet, they haven't done it yet.
Yeah, all the spectators had poker faces on, or he would know.
It would have definitely gave me some assurance. As soon as I hooked into her, she flashed, wrapped around the post, and couldn't do anything with her. It broke me off.
So this is an emotion that a lot of people face, but I know for someone who has earned it and done enough, he is recounting every single flip, every single skip, every single spot, what he could have did, the spot he did. He just remembered right now a spot that he didn't hit that he should have. There's so many what ifs in his mind right now, not even knowing that he did just enough.
First and foremost, let's give both these guys a big round of applause. It is the final day of the 2022 Strike King Bassmaster College Series bracket. I'm going to give you guys each a chance. I know you want to say some thank yous, excuse me, some thank yous in before we crown the champion. I'll start off with you, Seth. Anybody you would like to say hello and thank you to while we are live right quick?
I can't thank everybody enough back home for all the continued support. All my buddies that came to see me today, got out in the water, and it was pretty cool when they pulled up. I didn't expect them to come, and this college for all the support they've given us, and everyone back home, it's just insane. The whole state of Florida is rooting me on.
Mom and Dad,
I can't thank them enough. Family, friends.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't be here without them.
Absolutely. Well, man, I appreciate you guys. Both of you guys have made this a shootout today. I will tell you that we did hold a few things back, but I'm telling you, it came down to the wire, literally down to about 227 for you folks that were kind of watching, but it did come down to 227 today. So I will tell you that before we do any of this stuff right here, before we get out of here and do this, who would you like to say hello and thank you to in that camera?
I got too many people to thank. Parents, family, friends. I mean, the whole entire Biz staff was out there down the water watching us. We had a blast this week. I can't thank everybody at home enough. I mean, so many thank yous to say. I honestly can't even think of everybody I need to say thank you to, but just really special week. Bunch of special people behind me. It's been a good time.
And you guys all the anglers this week have done a phenomenal job making this exactly what it is. It's the best of the best, and there's a lot at stake. The college, series is a tough road to go, and thank you guys for being as good as you guys are and sharing it and your talents with Bass. And thanks to all the online viewers back home that watched FS1 the last 2 days and Bassmaster Live. Thank you guys for that. All the support that we get from you guys and the brand, we want to say thank you. So you guys just kind of inch up here real quick. We're going to do a card reveal to reveal the champion. It came down to a mere 1 pound, 2 ounce at 227 in a few seconds today. I'll let you guys flip them. Show everybody back home.
You're lying to me.
Show everybody back home. Show everybody back home that camera.
You're lying to me.
That's it. Stay right there. On behalf of Strike King, being the college series
You're lying.
sponsor
You're
team,
lying to me, dude.
you guys went back and forth all day long, and that last fish at 227, you sealed the deal today with 1 pound, 2 ounces. And it's my honor on behalf of Bass and Strike King, welcoming you punched your ticket to the Academy Sports and Outdoor Bassmaster Classic presented by Hook. That's your check.
I feel like I'm being pranked. Yeah. How can he hold this thing up?
Look at that camera and tell those folks back home what this means right here. This is a dream maker week, and today your dream came true. Congratulations.
Yeah, it did. I don't know what to say. I truly am speechless. I didn't think we got it done today. It was ugly. It was gross. Somehow we did it. I want to thank everybody at home watching, everybody here. I couldn't have done it without any of them. Wow. Thank you to B.A.S.S. This is an incredible opportunity, and yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words.
That's what we want. Give me a hug, boy. Give me a hug, boy.
Ma, come here.
What a great moment. When Louis Monetti is at a loss for words, you know it's a pretty important moment.
That is a
Great
tough
stuff.
one. It's great to see the support, the shock and awe when you feel like you didn't get it done and it went your way that day. Every hard cast, every hard catch was worth it for Louis Monetti and UNC Charlotte.
Not pranking you, man. You made it. You're in the Classic. They're all winners.
At a loss for words. Who knew that a fish, the last 3 fish of his day gave him the lead and extended his lead and gave him a safety net to be able to win the 2022 Strike King Bassmaster College Series Classic bracket presented by Lews. The entire college series presented by Bass Pro Shops. And there he is, winner, chicken dinner. Louis Monetti, 8 pounds, 13 ounces, representing UNC Charlotte now in the 2023 Bassmaster Classic.
Man, Kyle, it almost brings a tear to my eye seeing those guys because they both were just hyper critical of their day. Every single cast matters, but on that idle end, you see that drive by Louis Monetti. He's just running his boat, whatever it goes, 45, 55 miles an hour, just back to the ramp, and he's just cruising. And you can see the look on his face that he is thinking about every cast, every flip, the couple that missed his top water earlier in the morning, what he could have did differently. Did I run around too much? Every single decision is flashing through an angle, all 8 hours in a 10-minute run in your head. And it is exhausting just thinking about the what ifs and the I should have did this when it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. That you get to that point, and like we mentioned, when he was under the impression that obviously he didn't do enough, and not having known the weights and not having any idea as to where the weight stood at that moment, he certainly felt like with a significantly worse day than the previous 2 that he had no chance. But obviously his reaction at the end speaks for itself.
And you can see he talked about Louis talked about retying his jig and still breaking off that fish, and then he catches a quick one right after that near the end of the day. Same thing for Seth Slanker. I mean, he gets a bite under a dock and just leans into it, and you can hear the line on the dock like with fluoro, and then it just pops off, and he's like, oh no. You never really know how big it is on a spotted bass place because they do fight so hard. It could have been a spot, could have been the one that puts you in the Classic. That's the biggest thing these guys are fishing for, and it shows you in a head-to-head format. I do love, though, not knowing the weights. I don't know in the moment if I was there, if I'd want to know tabs on my opponent. It's smart to do that, but it's also really smart what Lewis did. And maybe you can speak to that as well. Sheerly fishing off instinct. You don't know. It's a normal tournament. Every tournament we fish, we don't know what our opponent has, except you're going to put that little bit of drama in the bracket and you're going to get an update. Do you want the update? Do you not want the update? I kind of wouldn't want the update because I want to, if I'm confident in what I'm doing, I got to stick to that. And I don't want to be deterred. Now, if I wasn't on anything and I was just surviving day to day, I might want to know if I'm just missing the boat. If my opponent caught a 6-pounder this morning, I need to know that. But I feel like I would be on the same crowd of not finding out. What about you?
I'm the same way. I think what he did was smart, and I'm anxious to hear more about that. We'll ask him about that, of course. But, you train your mindset fishing tournaments and being a successful tournament angler to put your nose down from the start of the day to the end of the day, irregardless what everybody else is doing, because you can only control, it's the cliche phrase, but you can control what you can control. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's that simple. So I mean, knowing what Seth had in that moment probably wasn't going to do him a whole lot of good. I mean, it might, in that exact moment, it might have given him a little bit of confidence that he wasn't exactly smashing him either. But I mean, really, control what you can control. And that's, I'm sure, what his mindset was. And like I said, when you have that mindset for any other tournament, you wouldn't want to, on the final day of your potential season, you wouldn't want to change that. So I think it was smart by him to do that, but I'm certainly anxious to hear what he has to say about that as well.
Well, why don't we go ahead and bring him in, Louis Monetti, the 2022 College Classic bracket champion, and be able to talk to him about that exact thing, because that's the thing that drives us all crazy. What's up, Louis? Can you hear us?
What's going on, guys?
Man, we're just recounting the fact of a couple decisions you made during the day of that final day of the bracket, declining every single day to get your midday update, not knowing what your opponent had, and then obviously doubting yourself on winning the bracket in that post-day interview. Tell us about, we were just saying that we were both kind of on the train of, we probably would have declined it as well, especially if we were confident or comfortable with what we were doing during a tournament day. Now, I said that if I was really on nothing and I was just surviving day by day, I might want to know what my opponent had so I can adjust. But you didn't realize that right before that midday break, you were 5 pounds back. And then when you got to the midday break, you were about 4 ounces back, and it was actually that close at the midday break. So tell us about declining that. Is that something you just did off a whim, or you had planned not to get that in the bracket?
Yeah, no. So I kind of, going in, that was kind of my whole feeling. Like I that was honestly my biggest fear going into the bracket, was like, man, like I've seen, I've addicted to all the past ones, like any other college guy that wants to do it is. So going in, I knew obviously the midday weight update, and I was like, man, I'm going to ask Glenn prior to if I can not accept the weight update, because I do not want to know. I know it's going to screw me up. I don't know. I try to go out there with as free and open a mind as possible, and to, be hearing what the other guy's doing. I was actually watching back on some of the footage yesterday, and heard what Tommy and Brandon were saying about, you can't do anything about that weight. So, what's the sense in knowing it? So that was kind of my mindset going through. And thankfully, Glenn was cool with us not getting the weights. And I don't know if that was a thing in the past or not really. But yeah, no, it was the whole week. It was kind of my plan to just not know. And yeah, I think it was really key, especially on that final day. I don't know if this got broadcasted or not. But I remember saying to the guys in the boat, at least, that just like, I was like, man, I just need to get some sort of momentum going before that break, because that breaks it kind of breaks you up. It's an interesting dynamic, and it's up in and of itself. Like, even not knowing the weights, just having 15 minutes to sit down and kind of like think is a weird thing in a tournament. So I really tried to every day. I didn't really have any moment. Actually, I did. Every day I kind of got a little bit of momentum before that break, and I think it like really helped out, kind of calm me for that second half.
Now let's talk about the fishing itself a little bit, because I think that, having watched you a lot this year, getting to see your success, obviously, throughout the entire college series, it seemed like that lake suited your style really well. Would that be a safe assumption?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of especially more so than the lake, the time of year. I always talk about how much I hate fall fishing, which is true. I absolutely despise it. But that being said, it always kind of suits my tournament fishing style. I think that kind of goes back to me coming from New Jersey, just a place where it kind of is always tough. It's funny, everyone you think of the North and everything is so good. It's seemingly catching fish is like never a problem up north, but in Jersey it is. So just coming from that background where I'm always, struggling, not struggling to, but just trying to find like any way possible to get a bite and just being in that grinder mindset. I think that fall tournament, and especially on a lake like Greenwood, I know Hartwell fishes really well this time of the year. So for it to be on Greenwood where, you might not have as much of the kind of herring fall bite going on. It's kind of just your typical southeastern tough fall bite. It definitely set up well for me.
Other than the watercolor, I mean, I kind of said this lake is the exact lake of Hartwell and Murray combined, and Norman and Wiley combined. I felt like it was a cleaner high rock. Like as a Carolinian, I was like, oh my goodness, this place would be a dream for someone who doesn't have live scope or forward facing sonar, who would love to lock a jig in their hand or who love to just cover water with top water. It really felt like that. So tell me, in Thursday's practice day, because you had one day of practice, the seeding day got canceled. You were the number one seed, which means something and it doesn't mean something, when you go to day one of the bracket, especially because you're facing one of the most seasoned teams of the bracket in McKendree. But tell me about Thursday's approach to practice. You guys got one guaranteed day before it's kind of competitive. You got to figure out a whole lake. Did you stick to a small area, or did you run around kind of like we saw you on the final day of the bracket and kind of just get a little look at every part of the lake and see what was kind of it looked like?
Yeah, no. So that's a loaded question. I guess we'll get to kind of the tournament in a little bit, and that's a whole nother thing I got to get into. It's really interesting. But yeah, practice. So kind of my thought process all year long, and it's kind of just something that's always worked out for me, is I can never, I don't know if it's because of my, boat speed and gas limitations, but I've always been way more comfortable when I practice for a tournament, when I pick some kind of area and just try my hardest to dial it in. So I really like, for example, on Harris Chain earlier this year, we picked Griffin and we spent 5 days of practice in Griffin, like just learning every nook and cranny of it. And I think that really helps me just be really comfortable. Not so much catching fish, that never really comforts me. It makes me feel better in practice, more so just knowing where I'm at. It's kind of a weird thing in that, I feel like a lot of guys are comfortable when, I got a bite here, or I marked a school fish here. I kind of just feel comfortable when I know where I'm at. Oh yeah, I know that little ditch is over there. Like, I know that house looks familiar. I remember there's a grass flat there. Some stuff like that. So I kind of focus just on that bottom end. I kind of, in the Carolinas especially, and I'm not so sure about the rest of the Southeast, but I know especially in the Carolinas on dammed, impoundments, it seems like the lower end of all of those lakes hold the biggest fish. Now, what I've also found is that because they're usually the clearest water on the lake, they're usually the hardest fish to catch. They're usually the smartest, but for some reason, I always feel like the biggest fish in a lake, like the true biggest giant fish in a lake, live on the lower end. And it kind of suits my style, and that I'm kind of a finesse guy and all that. So I focused on that lower end just because I thought it would be the cleanest, as it typically is. I thought that the biggest fish would be down there, and it just was where I felt most comfortable. Now my practice, I was not comfortable. I spent almost the whole time offshore, and the reasoning for that was strictly because of the storm. I really felt like with that storm coming in, potentially we were supposed to get a lot more rain than we did. That was kind of weird. So I almost going into the first day of tournament was like, man, maybe I messed up, but I felt like if I just stayed offshore where maybe the most stable conditions would be, at the very least, I could find some, kind of confidence inducing areas for me to pull up on in the tournament, at least get some fish in the boat early in the morning, and then just really junk it out and hop on the bank when I had a limit and go down it with a, like you said, with a jig and a buzzbait, which in and of itself is kind of an uncomfortable place for me, because I kind of pride myself on being like a consistent points fisherman. And I knew good and well that throwing a shaky head and a drop shot and being a points fisherman this week wasn't going to get it done. So yeah, being uncomfortable doing that. But regardless, yeah, I tried to kind of dial in something I could get some fish in the boat on, and then just fish the conditions after the storm.
Now, I'm going to hit you with another loaded question, and this is something that I've been thinking ever since watching you, obviously, on the last day. Obviously, being a successful competitive, bass angler has so much to do with your mindset and your mental game. And it seems like once again, I've had the privilege of getting to watch you all season long, been to all the events, of course. And then watching you on the third day, it really hit me that your mental game seems way more advanced than maybe some college anglers. And with younger anglers, a lot of times that's what people struggle with. The combination of, you didn't want to know the weights because you obviously know you can only control what you can control. And then the one thing Tommy brought up, or maybe it was Ronnie, I can't remember, seemed like anytime something would go negative, you just make a little small run, clear your head, and just start fresh. Like, just talk about your mentality, and if you're speaking to some of the younger anglers that might not have that dialed in, how do you get to where you're at now?
Man, that is a very hard question to answer. I'll say you're absolutely right. I don't want to sit here and say, I'm mentally I'm so far ahead, because I don't truly believe that or even know that.
We'll see that in Knoxville in 2020.
We will. But yeah, no, I it's definitely over my young tournament career, that has been my focus. I kind of grew up a student of the game to Mike Iaconelli, just being a Jersey guy, and that's kind of been my guy always. And I've always heard him talk about fishing the moment and fishing free and all of that stuff, and I kind of took it all to heart. So I've always felt like, I don't know, I've always felt like the ability to catch the fish is in me. It's my own head I have to get over. And that was always my biggest problem. I think I talked about that on live a little bit. My biggest problem going into this year had always, with consistency, had been, getting over those little bumps in the road, lost fish, or the motor not starting, or, whatever it may be. So it's definitely something I tried to focus on, especially this year. It's something I think Michael having him in the boat helped me with a lot. Just having like kind of a calming presence, and someone to bounce an idea off of, or affirm an idea even, just kind of like boosting my confidence consistently throughout the year. And even think about like a guy like Rick Clunn. I feel like he was obviously there's not even words to describe his legendary status in fishing, and I think everyone respects him as being the guy who kind of first dove into the mental side of it and said, hey, this isn't just throw your spinnerbait up on the log and catch them. There's a big mental side of the sport. So that's always been kind of just something I really focus on, and I think it's a hard thing to give advice on, I think.
It is.
Everyone's so different as far as mentality goes. You think of guys like, I think of a guy like Aaron Martins, where he kind of, at least I feel like his greatness came from his ability to not over prepare, but prepare to the max and have everything to a T, and have a reason and an explanation for every bite he got. And that works great, obviously, for some people. It never worked for me. I was never the guy who could sit down and go, oh, this wind with that water temperature and the pressure is X, Y. I don't even know what numbers of pressure is or what they mean. So I've never been that guy. I've always just been the guy that, hey, if I got a smile on my face and I'm having fun, I feel like I can catch fish, and my brain is going to, just go at the right rate to put things together. I always get a hard time from a bunch of my buddies saying, Lewis is the luckiest fisherman in the world. And I maybe I am, but
got lucky 3 days in a row. That's something.
Yeah. Been lucky all season, really lucky season.
That's kind of my argument. That's what it tends to be. But yeah, no, I don't know. I kind of think that it's funny because, from a distance, it does look like I am a really lucky person, and I don't really believe in luck in fishing. I really do think that it's just it's funny because I put in all this time on the water, right? And you'd think from someone that puts in as much time as me that would be the guy that figures out, oh, that condition means this. What I really think happens is when I put in so much time on the water, for me personally, I kind of just backlog subconsciously so much information in my head that when I make a decision on the water and I'm in a good positive mindset, it's not me going and actually thinking through the X's and O's. It's just kind of an instinctual thing that's subconsciously there from who knows how many prior experiences. So,
well, a couple things off of that. Did you see the comment on the Bassmaster post of your win on the final day of the bracket where Rick Clun commented and said, "Congratulations on such a great accomplishment"? So that was cool that you mentioned Rick because he was paying attention to you.
Yeah, that like stuff like that's been kind of happening these last few days that's when I kind of like need to look at myself in the mirror and say, wait,
is this a prank?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then another thing, and he said that so many times in that way, and I was like, bro, take the check. If it is a prank, accept it, because they can take this check away at any moment. Take it.
Lewis was waiting for Ashton Kutcher to just pop out of the woods any minute for prank.
I was. That's a whole nother thing.
We would go viral for the wrong reasons, like mean tournament organization punks kid on momentous victory.
I know.
I feel like we're very similar anglers because and this is the second part of that deal, is that I'm a very positive person. Like after the anthem plays, I'm sitting there clapping in the boat, getting ready for take. Like I'm so amped up. And then if like a fish catch happens and my teammate and I fist bump, or when we call something to happen and it works out, you just get so. I could beat Seth Fighter and Brandon Pollock right now if they wanted to. Like we're so amped up. And for you, when you had the flotilla of guys out there following you, all your buds, all the BizBait, True South crew, college partners, all of that, and they're out there following you, it could be a good and a bad thing. I've been out there in a flotilla with an elite angler. When that flotilla leaves, you realize you're not doing so hot. Then when you obviously when they stay and they're pumping you up, you feel like you're winning, even if it doesn't, they say it. When you caught 12 ounce, 13 ounce, 14 ounce fish on that final day, the crowd treated it like a 6-pounder every time. And you would be like, oh, he's a little guy. And then they'd cheer and he'd be like, yeah, that's right. Actually, you know what? This is a good one. This is important. Yeah. And then the next couple casts, no matter how bad of a jig skipper you are, I feel like those were your best casts of the day. Like you were like, let's do it. We can do this. I can do this. And it was very cool to see you thrive off that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt. I kind of, it's funny, I was talking to all the guys, either before or after, both throughout the week, even on day one. And they were like, hey, is it cool? Like, do you want us to be quieter? I'm like, no, dude, just keep doing what you're doing. It's honestly helping me. And even, through some of the bad, which there was plenty of on that final day, I was kind of like, I'd try and kind of joke with them. Thanks, man. Yeah. And kind of throw a joke here and there or laugh when they said one, because it just exactly what you said, just another thing to put a smile on my face and kind of get some positivity in the boat.
Even if it's like a 12-second clearing of the mind, you're sitting here trying to pitch into a dock, and someone says a joke and you just turn and laugh. And then the next time you cast, it's refocused again. It's like that 15-minute break or that 5-minute run down the lake. It was just a reset for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that was when the worst of it was definitely that like mid-morning. And I think
right before the best of it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think exactly what you said. I kind of, if you remember, I pulled up on a little rock point that I had, and it's actually a place where I pretty much started on the first day. And I was like, man, I just need to get a bite in the boat, and pulled up there, and I think I caught my smallest fish of the day. It was like a 13-ounce fish, and they were like, yeah, like, let's go. I was like, okay. I was like, you know what? We got 3 fish in the box. Their names, they may not be giants, but we got 3 in the box. You know, we got just a little bit. I mean, the smallest amount of momentum. Let's run with it a little bit, and let's make a run down the lake and try and make something happen. And I think I don't know, I'm excited to watch tonight to see the day 3 coverage, but I think it was not but 10, 15 minutes later, I ran over that dock, skipped onto there and caught a 2.5. And then it was like, okay, this ain't over. We're going to get this done.
So one thing I've noticed throughout the season too is you and Michael like to have a good time. You guys are overall a really good time.
Didn't see his Instagram story in the truck on the way back from the bracket. You know they had a good time.
Basically the college version of Lee Livesey and Caleb Summerall in a way, and that's not a bad thing. Those are fantastic human beings. But talk to me a little bit about the story of you and Michael meeting, because I've heard that story a few times, and I think that's so fascinating that I want people to hear that if they haven't heard that story already.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome one, and honestly, it's best told probably by Michael. But I'll try and do it justice. So freshman year of college, I kind of just got into a circle of friends and was hanging out, and his now girlfriend was in that kind of circle of friends. And I remember, you know, kind of like right when they started dating, you know, when you got a buddy or whatever the case may be, you don't really bring the boyfriend or girlfriend around the friend group for, you know, a little while.
You want to scare her off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he was kind of hearing about me and my buddies through her, and was like, dude, who are these ass? Like, who are these guys? Like, why are you hanging out with them? Why are you talking about these guys? And yeah, we met and just kind of instantly hit it off, and it just instantly became really great friends. It's kind of funny how it all started. Like, our friendship started with him being like, dude, who's this jerk that my girlfriend keeps talking about? Like, I can't, like, you know, the whole 9. But yeah, no, I think a couple months after that, he kind of mentioned to me that he like went home and started fishing and had like an ugly stick spinning rod. And I was like, dude, like, I'm going to High Rock, which is just an absolutely terrible place to take somebody for the first time fishing.
Yes, but it teaches fundamental life lessons now, okay?
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah, no, we went out there, and it was amazing to see, because that was probably at the end of my like sophomore year or something like that. And he came back from that summer and got in the boat, and we fished a club tournament, and I was like, dude, is this the same person in the back of my, like, he had gained, I think he fished every single day that summer and had like 1,000% increase in skill and just capability. And you know, it's so cool to see.
Everyone was asking why you claimed dibs on him as a partner when they hadn't really seen him compete in club tournaments. You're like, no, I got this guy. I promise, I got this guy. He's like, he's a prodigy or something as a partner.
Yeah, no, like, no joke, that fall. I don't know how much this has been publicized or not, but the Charlotte guys know this good and well. That fall, I think we fished like 7 or 8 club tournaments and won 6 or 7 of them. Like, it was a ridiculous, it was the best I've fished in my life. Like, we were pulling up and just winning, and he was towards the end of it, like, he was contributing 2 fish a day. It was like, dang, dude, like, we got something going here. And then I went and fished, I think that was it would have been the 21 season. I went and fished that year by myself. Kind of started off with a bang. I remember going into Hartwell. That was the first tournament of 21 college series. Mad. Like, I fished that tournament angry, because the year before was the COVID season, and we kind of got screwed over by the school with not being able to go to tournaments. And, you know, there's the whole unaffiliated thing going on. It was just a wild year. Well, obviously it was a wild year, but the next year I just went, I was fishing angry at Hartwell, and went and did really well. I came in 19th, and was like, I'm just going to I'm going to carry this anger over. I'm going to fish all 4. I'm going to win team of the year. And I sucked in all 3 of the other tournaments. All 3 of them were terrible. I think it was like 99th, 120th, and 115th. Like, just.
I love that he remembers those, Kyle. That's how mad he was.
It was an abysmal performance. And then, I kind of going into this year, I was approached by a freshman who's now a sophomore. His name's Jake Monty. And if you don't know the name, you're going to. I promise you right now. And he was like, dude, we should partner up. Like, just go, straight dream team. You show me the ropes. I'm gonna sit back in the back of the boat and catch them, or whatever you want to do. And I was like, man, like, yeah, I think I might be interested in that. And then Michael and I kind of got opened up to the idea of having a partner for the first time in my college career. And we were fishing Lake Norman one night in November and caught the snot out of him. And this is the true story. I went to put the boat on the trailer. I was like, Michael, like, dude, I'm gonna need you to wait out here in the water. I got to the bathroom bad. And I had a little moment in the porta potty at Beatty's Ford Boat Ramp.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And came out of there and was like, dude, I need to fish next year with Michael. And walked down. I was like, you want to fish college series next year, dude? And sadly broke my buddy Jake's heart, although he finished in 7th at the Natty, so I don't think he's all that angry. And yeah, no, that's the story of how it all came to be.
I have a quick question about UNC Charlotte before we move on. I didn't want to segue and forget. Two things with this. I went to East Carolina, and I had a lot of people from Jersey and up there come to ECU, and the same thing seems to be with all the Carolina schools. There's a lot of northern people, and it's like North Carolina is the first state that they'll start to look at schools. What made you from New Jersey pick UNC Charlotte? And the second part of that question is, what's it mean to you to follow the likes of Shane LaHue and Eric Self and Jake Whitaker and Andrew Helms? And like, UNC Charlotte's put out a lot of bracket competitors over the last few years and have won tournaments. And so now that you'll be fishing in the Classic, and the third person from UNC Charlotte to fish in a Classic, that's up there with Auburn and some other, Bethel, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, it really is cool. And before I get to kind of how I ended up coming to school here, it's really honestly humbling to be mentioned kind of in those names and just kind of carry on the torch. I feel like, I as much as this may seem as kind of a negative, I feel like it's well known and well acknowledged in the fishing scene these days that the club team in college bass fishing, I think, is a dying thing, and it's kind of sad to see. On one hand, it's awesome to see because you've got schools like Montevallo, Bryan, Bethel, McKendree, Carson Newman, the list goes on that are offering scholarships and just amazing opportunities to these kids. But I think Ronnie, there's something special to the kind of that club roughing it team where that we live on a budget and kind of just get really close. And not to say that those team guys don't, but it's cool I think Auburn still is a club too, and they've been a great example of how you can be a club team and still maintain incredible relevancy. And I think they've kind of become like a role model for us, especially our younger guys who are taking some leadership roles in the club. We kind of are looking up to Auburn as like a school. Like, why can't we be like that? Just like you said, we kind of do have that legacy. And not only that, I've been kind of honored to be kind of the next guy from Charlotte to, like you said, be a bracket guy, be a Classic guy. It's pretty incredible. So to go back on all that.
Well, the Carolinas produces anglers, whether it's college, high school, elite series, this is a great part of the country to fish in.
Yes.
And I don't want to sound biased about it, but it does shape some anglers. And so it makes sense why you guys do prevail. And I will also touch on it. Kyle fished at University of Arkansas, and they were a club, I believe. And so all three of us being club guys, I love all the coaches. I know them by name and stuff, and I've been there in the weigh-ins beside, and they're proud of their teams. They have their tents set up. If I went back to college, I'd be on a club again, even though I knew there's scholarship opportunities now. I would go back and be a club, because one thing that taught me, just personally, I fished with 7 different combos of teammates, whether it's because they didn't like me or something, or nobody wanted to go to a tournament, I fished by myself. I fished with 7 different groupings, including solo, throughout my 4 years of school. That taught me a whole lot with fishing with different people. And it showed me I had to be committed to go to events. No one was paying for me. If I wanted to go, I got to go. Yeah. And I got to do it. And so Kyle can respect that as well. And you guys can as well. The team can fundraise, but the commitment level of anglers that fish in a club/team, I'm not saying it's higher than scholarship teams, but you got to want it rather than someone taking care of it. And if we zero this week, we don't have a bill to pay. No, if we zero this week, we should have stayed at the freaking Motel 6 because the Hampton cost too much because we zeroed this week, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, I've had some of these conversations with a guy who I plan on and hope to travel on the Opens next year, Logan Anderson. You guys may know him. He's a NC State graduate. We kind of talked about this in that, like you said, not to take anything away from the team guys that have coaches and all that, but I almost feel like, in a way, and this is maybe a hot take, it may not be, I almost feel like the guys who come out of the college ranks from a club who, like you said, kind of needed to penny pinch and rough it a little bit, and like want it. You needed to want it to succeed. I almost feel like they're a little bit better prepared for the next step, because as hard as a road as getting through the Opens and getting on the Elite Series is, I feel like us club guys have a little bit better of an idea of what we face. I think we kind of understand that, like, fishing for a career is a dream come true. It truly is. But at the same time, it is far from glitz and glam. There are some hard truths to going out on the road. And I think us club guys, not to say that the team guys don't, I think we might just get it a little bit more.
No question. I mean, it shows you a lot of responsibility too, because there's one, and like Ronnie said, this is no disrespect to teams that have coaches. I mean, like Lewis said, I think that's a great thing. Yeah, that's a great thing for the sport of college fishing. But with that being said, I mean, having been the president in Arkansas for over a year, I mean, you realize that, like, it's your responsibility. There's nobody pushing you. I'm sure you guys had the same way. Club sports wasn't offering to give you a whole lot of money. Like, to make it happen, you have to show a whole lot of responsibility. And like you said, Ronnie, there's nobody behind you forcing you to go. So when you're doing it, you understand what's at stake. Most of the time you're going off your own money, because, at Arkansas, I'm sure it's the same for you guys. The money that you were allowed in would get you about one tournament, and then past that, you're just on your own funds. So no, I think there's a massive advantage to that. And I'm glad that we brought that up, because, I'm sure you're the same way now, Lewis, but most of your friends in college fishing, for the most part, probably go to schools that give scholarships, because that's the majority. So they don't really see it that way. But I'm glad that we brought it up for sure.
Well, and the thing I'll say about that is, I think I mentioned it during Bass Live at the final day of the bracket. Lewis will tell me, because he's going to watch the entire thing again, very soon, over and over again. But when it comes to the college series, I'm not going to say back in my day, like I'm some, on my grandpa on my porch saying, get off my lawn type thing. But
you're old.
Back in the different world. It was. And so we used to have tournaments that were 70, 85, 90 angler, 90 teams. It wasn't 225. It wasn't 250. It was the 80 or 90 that showed up. Half of them are pros. Like, you had to show up, and if you showed up back in the day, it's because you wanted it that bad. Nowadays, where it's so accessible to a lot of people, and when people say the term, which drives me nuts, grow the sport, if you don't see these fields being full and having wait lists, we have grown the sport. Now we've got to find out how to maintain the sport. And when I say that is, we now have 250 teams qualify or showing up at every single event, and it's harder to determine who wants it that bad when it's more accessible. You know, when everyone gets on the team and no one gets cut in a rec league basketball, you don't really know who loves a basketball. They're just doing it because they can, and no one said no. When the fields are that big, a lot of people want it, but when it gets tough, when it's not easy, which percentage of the field wants it? And so I still think that there are 150 out of the 250 teams that want it bad. Like, they wake up wanting it, they go to bed wanting it. And the percentage is probably there. It was probably 70 of the 90, you know, and it's a ratio, but it's now harder to decide who's going to be the next prodigy from the college series, because it's harder to tell who wants it the baddest. But when you see certain things, like Kyle and I with Chris Decker and Nolan Miner made a list of guys in the preseason that we thought we should keep our eye on. I don't believe you were on that list, so my apologies, but you were fishing overly mad the year before, and it affected your final 3 finishes. But I will say that we didn't necessarily have our eyes on you and some guys from UNC Charlotte, but that just shows you that this year you popped up and we know you want it. We know all that you've gone through now. We know your boat situation. We know all the travel situations. We know all of that. And so that's the hardest thing for our sport going forward, is determining who wants it that bad. And I think the making people fish all 9 opens to make the elites, that is the determining factor on who wants it that bad, who's going to go in debt because they want it that bad.
Before,
not the debt part, but yeah.
before I commend you for that comment, because I could not agree anymore. I am going to let y'all know that I want to thank you so much for that article, because it did fuel a fire, man.
I was hoping we weren't even going to address it. I was going to hope we thought that was famously, that's our biggest miss of the year, and it's not even close.
No, it totally fueled a fire. I was like, oh, okay. So no, but to go back on the opens thing,
don't worry, it fueled. Gary Mason texted it as well, so don't you worry. We fueled Bethel's fire too.
I'm sure he did. No, but really, the opens, I couldn't agree more. I mean, honestly, like, I was sitting there laughing at all the hate comments when all that came out, and I know, Ronnie, you're B.A.S.'s personal
mascot,
warrior.
Yeah, exactly. No longer. I got a career to think about. I gotta tone that back a little bit, probably.
No, but I remember just reading some of the comments and laughing, like, being like, oh, you know why you think that way? Because you don't get it. Like, you're exactly right, man. I mean, that is going to show who wants it, truly. And my thing with it always has been, ever since I kind of thought about it and sat down and kind of realized, you know, what was going on, is if you can't afford to go on the road and go do 9 opens, how in the world are you expecting to do double the entry fees and just as much travel the next year on the Elite Series? That's the one thing I can't seem to get over. So, and you know, it's coming from somebody who didn't know how he was going to fund the opens whenever the time came. But like you said, I wanted it bad enough that, I mean, this opportunity is nothing short of a dream come true. And it is going to make, you know, the opportunities that have already come from it are just amazing. But I mean, I was ready and fully prepared to sacrifice whatever it is that needed to be sacrificed in the next 3 years to try and make it just pay the entries for 1 year. I mean, I didn't have the boat. I wasn't ready to do it in my truck, and I didn't have any of the money for the entry fees, and I had $20,000 of student loans to pay off. So
maybe 10,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 10,000.
So I was ready to be the guy that sacrificed everything just to give it a shot on the opens, and then I didn't know what the heck I was going to do for the elites and the event that I made it. So like you said, it's going to separate those who just simply want it the worst and who are willing to sacrifice, because I at least I'm such a tournament and bass fishing junkie that I listen to enough podcasts and interviews to know that it doesn't get any easier when you get to the top.
Now, is it true that you've signed some NIL deals since winning the bracket? That's been the rumor around the rumor mill.
Who's saying that?
Randy Blockett is funding you because you don't use LiveScope. Randy Blockett is completely funding you for 2023.
Ronnie, haven't you heard I'm Randy Blockett's hero? I mean,
I know.
So that's one thing we need to address here. I feel like we haven't really talked about enough at all. One of the most insane stories about all this is the boat you run, and the fact that, once again, like,
and the fact that it runs.
No LiveScope. This is an exact same. I wish I could go word for word what our conversation was at Saginaw Bay, but I called Lewis to see where he was at because we were going to do an interview with him that morning about Team of the Year. He said, "Yeah, we're right at the end of the dock. It's the biggest piece of blank boat in the entire field. You shouldn't be able to miss us." I said, "You got it, boss." And we of course walked down there, and I mean, like, explain your boat, and if you haven't seen pictures of it, if you're listening, obviously go find pictures. There's plenty to be seen. But just, I mean, the message that you had on Instagram the other day, you know, basically talking to everybody about your exact situation, I just want to hear that from you more, because if somebody would have missed that by now, they need to hear it.
I couldn't agree more. And that's kind of the one thing I think I said in that video, where, like, you know, obviously I hope this does not happen, but it's very possible that, you know, the opens don't go well for me next year and we just kind of putter out and get a real job in 5 years. But obviously I hope that does not happen. I want people to take away from this that you can at least give yourself a shot. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody some fantasy dream that, oh, you know, anybody can do it, because I don't know if I can do it yet. We're going to find out next year.
You might have to go back to an older boat if the new one doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. That might be the key. But yeah, no, I seriously do believe that anybody can give themselves a shot. I do think it's kind of unfortunate, and I hope that it changes one day, that you have to make the sacrifices that you do have to make just to give yourself a shot at a shot. But that being said, I mean, that's kind of the beauty in it, right? You know, you think about maybe a professional baseball player or something like that, and, you know, don't get me wrong, there's an advantage in some other sports such as baseball or basketball or whatever, that somebody with just natural talent can potentially make it to the top. You know, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that that's not the truth. And in bass fishing, you could have just the natural talent, but if you don't have the drive, you're not going anywhere. So it's a sport that forces you to have kind of it all. You know, and the other thing too is you could have all the resources in the world and never make it. I mean, that's the other side of the coin, right? So I think truly to excel in the sport, you need to have both the drive and the talent. But all that being said, if you want it bad enough, there's an avenue. Like Kyle's saying, I have the boat I made out of this year, for anybody who doesn't know. It's a 17-foot 1996 Ranger R72. It's got a 115 horsepower motor on the back and a Gen 2 HGS 8 Reliance at the console. I used a Lowrance Hook 7. That's about a 5-year-old graph. I used that for the first tournament on Harris Chain. And since then, I've yet to put that graph on the boat since I left the Harris Chain. You know, it's, I think I saw somebody, you know, talking about how, and we talked about it on here, how this tournament really set up well for you know, no forward facing and no sonar on the front, and that's absolutely true. But I'm not saying you can win every tournament without it, because I don't believe that to be the case. But I think you can find a way to compete in any tournament with whatever means necessary. You know, I think about like a Harris Chain, you know, the Messer boys, and I think it was Seth Jenkins and his partner from Emmanuel. They just absolutely, they blew everybody out of the water, like literally. And they did it, you know, with, I think probably, I'm not exactly certain, but probably 360 and maybe some forward facing, and they were fishing shell beds, and that's what won them that tournament. And I too had a graph. All I did was graph around, find grass. And then just like I was doing this past weekend, I was marker buoying and sitting there and throwing at hydrilla for hours and hours and hours. So there's a way. I mean, I don't know. I also think part of the reason why, honestly, that I haven't won any serious tournament prior now is just because of my style of fishing. It has nothing to do with the boat. I truly believe that. Because everyone knows you can win a tournament in Florida punching. You could win a tournament on Lake Norman sight fishing. You know, all of those things can happen. I just am not that kind of angler. I'm kind of a points guy, 2.5 pound you to death kind of guy. And that's kind of how we got Team of the Year done. But, I mean,
it bodes well for the Opens.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope so.
and next year's schedule is very diverse. It's one of the most diverse schedules we've had. We'll get your take on that in just a second. But what you were saying about the natural talent of athletes in other sports, it makes me think about the movie Hustle on Netflix with Adam Sandler. It's a basketball movie. I don't know if you watch it. I'm a huge basketball fan, but he plays the position of a scout in the NBA, and he's supposed to find that gym overseas, and he goes to a random pickup game in the middle of the city, one of those chain link fenced courts, and this guy wearing work boots is dunking and playing well, and then he ends up getting him in the gym and getting him to try out, and he's an actual NBA player that played the actor. And at one point in it, he says, you have the natural ability, but so does everyone else out there that I'm looking at. Do you want it? How bad do you want it? Do you want to wake up and you want it? Do you want to go to sleep and you want it? And that's the same thing you were talking about, is some athletes can survive by being natural talent, but also we can see those same natural talent guys fizzle out in 3 or 4 years, whereas they might not even approach registration for an open event or something if they don't have the desire. So at the end of the day, Kyle can say it. I can say it. I beat anglers who were much better than me because I practiced till dark, because I wanted it more, because I stayed there for 30 seconds left till check-in and checked in late. I ran an 18-foot Ranger and I had flames on the motor just to make it seem like we were going faster than we were. So we could intimidate some people. And I know Kyle had a smaller rig as well until he upgraded,
1992 Skeeter. So we're right there.
Yeah. We're all in that. And I remember at takeoff when I was a junior and senior, I would sit there and we'd watch all the boats and trucks backing in. It was at Hartwell down near the dam. And I had a freshman partner with me and he said, man, look at these rigs. And I said, hey, look right here. We're going to beat most of those anglers today. We get 11th place in the tournament. And I beat Jake Whitaker by an ounce. And I always razz him that today. I beat him with a drop shot with an ounce while he was throwing a frog. So it's one of those things. The equipment doesn't, like, people want to say live scope makes the Elite Series pros worse than they are. You take it away from Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, and Brandon Polnick. They're the same dang anglers who were winning in 2017 and 2018. I promise you. Promise you. All those guys who made the Elite Series, maybe not this year's class or last year's class, but before that, all qualified without it. They all were in that conversation of best in the world right now without it. Now they just need it because they want to continue to be the best in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you take the live scope away from Jason Christie last year at the Classic and he finds a way to win. I genuinely do believe that.
Catch him on 2D, baby.
Yeah, heck yeah. 2D still works, man. Come on now.
The Yum 2D minnow.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like you'll be a sellout to the old boat and old equipment guy when you get your rig, if you do end up putting live scope on it just in case you need it? I mean, are you going to feel like you're pressured now to not use it?
Do I feel like at least slightly pressured, at least by Randy Blackett? I am to not.
And we all see our heroes disappoint us at some point, so you'll have to disappoint him sometime.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I think I said this. I don't know what interview article it was, but I'd be kidding myself. I genuinely would be kidding myself if I believed that boat would take me through the Opens to the Elite Series. Come on, there's a line. You know what I mean?
Great one to retire it from, though.
Yes. I said going in to this past tournament, when I hooked it up, I sent a Snapchat to like 5 or 6 to my buddies, and I took a picture in the rearview mirror. I said, "Win, lose or draw, this is probably it for the old girl."
Hey,
So,
maybe it'll go in a museum somewhere, as an honored with the seats in the condition they are, all of that stuff.
yeah.
Because it did see the whole country. And one thing I'll say is when we fished, if you qualified at the first tournament of the year, you didn't need to go to the rest of them. There wasn't a team of the year. So you were good. That means, hey, I get to save some dollars. I didn't have to fish all of them. I did it in the first one.
Yeah.
For you this year, team of the year gets a spot, obviously, because you're team of the year in the championship, but also in the bracket. From the first event of the season, was that on your mind, team of the year, making the bracket that way instead of having to get top 3 in the championship? Or did you just want to fish and ride into the sunset type of thing?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt at all. When they announced the year before that it would be the first time ever that team of the year would be making the bracket, I thought it was honestly overdue. Not to knock Hank or whoever for not putting it in place earlier. I just thought that is a freaking excellent idea. Because, we think about the Elite Series, the most coveted and respected trophy, I think, by anglers is the Angler of the Year title. And with the diversity of the college schedules that we've had over the years, I mean, winning that team of the year title is no joke. I was honestly so humbled just to win it in the first place because of, if you look back at the names that have won it the last 5 years, you got KJ Queen and Zeke Gossett and obviously Logan and Tucker last year. I mean, it's a really, really impressive group. So it absolutely was on my mind. Especially coming back from Harris Chain. I know Michael and my parents and all the guys watching, like, oh my God, dude, you must be so down. You're so down and so hurt. You guys finished 3 ounces out of the national championship cut. And I was like, not really, dude. We want to do more than this year. And 26th place, that's fine for the worst of the year.
Yeah, this is going to be our worst finish of the year, guys. Book it right now.
I mean, a little bit. I won't lie. So yeah, no, it definitely was on my mind, and it was a goal from the beginning, and I was ecstatic, honestly, leaving Harris Chain because we escaped. I caught a 6-pounder on my last cast of the tournament at the Harris Chain, and we had about 12, 13 pounds in the boat. I caught a 6 that called out a 1. So I was ecstatic. We escaped Florida, and yeah, the race was kind of on.
So that's one thing I really did want to talk about is obviously we're talking a lot about the bracket win, rightfully so, because that's a huge deal, but you guys really did have a fantastic team of the year run. I'll just go through your finishes here. 26th at Harris Chain, 13th at Norman, 18th at Norfolk, 11th at Saginaw Bay. I want to hit on that last tournament. So obviously it was sitting 10 feet away as you guys weighed in both days, and you guys were excited, clearly. I mean, you were pumped. You knew right when you weighed your fish the second day you had it, and I think everybody else there did too. I just want to know what that was like, because last year, 2021, you finished 120th. You got it exactly right earlier, 120th at Saginaw. And I think that I speak for a lot of people thinking to myself, and I think a lot of people felt this way, was these guys have had a great run, but it's coming to an end at Saginaw. Coming to an end. Like, this is where it's going to end. And you guys came in there and finished 11th in that tournament in a place that you obviously did not have a good event last year. Just tell me about your mindset in that last tournament, how big of a relief that was to know you escaped with such a good finish there at the last event.
So it was complete rope-a-dope. I planned it out from the year before. I knew we were going back to Saginaw, so I wanted to put out a really bad performance now.
Chess and checkers.
All part of the plan. All part of the plan.
Exactly. No. So I think what happened to me last year was I kind of realized early that in Saginaw that I, at least, could not figure out a largemouth bite. And if I really wanted to perform, it was going to be on smallmouth. This printer is not too loud. Jairus.
No, I can't hear you.
I can't even hear it.
Okay, cool.
Dang,
so yeah.
Jairus.
I kind of realized the year before that there was no way I was going to compete on largemouth, and being that I'd already qualified and that I sucked so bad at the previous 2 tournaments, I was in no team of the year contention. So I kind of just went fishing in that tournament and was like even more down in the dumps because even the largemouth I caught were sorry largemouth compared to the field. So coming into this year, obviously, you know, we had a shot. We were, I think, leading by 1 point coming in. And I knew good and well, and I'll have to tell you a little quick story about Trey and Tyler in a second. But I knew good and well that if we were going to get it done, it was going to be on smallmouth, because not only is that kind of the better way to do well there. I mean, I think the third place guys, Dakota Posey and his partner, I think they came up 20 pounds of largemouth both days. I mean, just
2 years in a row too.
Yeah, just incredible. But I kind of knew that wasn't in the cards for me, and that we needed to go smallmouth fishing, because on top of that being the better way, that is, in my opinion, my true strength. You know, I've grown up in New Jersey, making trips to St. Lawrence every summer. I kind of call it my religious obligation to go up to the St. Lawrence at least once a year. I go for a week. I have to. It's there's never a question. So it's kind of just my deal. I love and really pride myself on my smallmouth abilities. So we knew we were going to, and I had this weird little inkling about Tawas Bay up in that upper left corner. It's about 45, 50 miles out. It's basically at the off limits line. And yeah, we decided that was the one. We found some fish up there, and that's where we got it done.
I gotta ask too, what was that run like in your boat? Because I think that was a big point of emphasis during the tournament, because it was rough. I was out on the water 2 days in a row, and it was rough.
You guys got a bleep button?
Hold on, ready? We're not live, I promise. Go. I'm just kidding.
It was a disaster. On top of the fact that it was as far as it was in as little of a boat as we were, we had a serious gas consumption problem to worry about. Just simply getting there with the gas to fuel when we got there was something I was really worried about. So we ran at about 3,500 RPMs the whole way out, which is incredibly inconvenient if you're trying to figure out what the right speed to run the waves at is, because it's like we go a little slower and we're being really inefficient, and we go a little faster and we're burning too much fuel. So it's like, we just got to sit here and take this beating. And that's what we did. It was an absolute nightmare. I remember multiple times throughout the ride, you just, and you know, Michael, you good? Yeah. Like it was bad.
That's the good news, though. You don't have to worry about knocking your graphs off if you don't have any on the boat.
Hey,
you don't have to worry
exactly right.
So, Louis, for you, we talked about it at the beginning, and then we mentioned the final day of the bracket and the whole declining of the results, or the midday results. We did not talk to you about that idle in. That idle in, you and Seth, and I'll say this, Seth didn't take the covers off his graph either. So it was a good old fashioned fish what's in front of you type of final day, which was cool. So both of y'all were doing very similar things. You ran around a lot more than he did. And you'll notice that on the maps when, you know, in the live show, you were always making moves and trying to, but it wasn't super crazy moves. It was just, let's go hop into this portion, see what's biting. And every time you make a move, you seem to catch one, even when you fished offshore for a little bit of the day. But I will say on that final, you know, you catch one on the last cast or two of the day on that dock, and it culls. It's not the one that gave you the lead, but it culls for you. You still didn't think you had it done? Was there a weight that you thought that you needed? Because I was just like feeling so bad. I wanted to just text you guys and be like, you won. Like, just stop being so sad. But you honestly didn't think you won, and neither did Seth.
No, it's honestly hysterical. You know, it's been a couple days removed, and, you know, obviously I've been talking a ton with my parents and family members and all that. And my dad calls me last night at about 11 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm trying to sleep and I don't even know what he's doing. I'm like, Dad, like, what is up? He's like, Lou, I gotta know, you know, I won't tell a soul for the rest of my life. Did you really not know? Dad, I swear I did not know. And I didn't.
And the crew didn't give it away. Did they leave 5 minutes before you packed up, or did they just stone faced, or did you tell them don't sway me, you know?
So the last like hour is just it's like I think it should be a movie in and of itself.
It will be. It's going to be on FS1 in January.
Awesome. So a couple like little background things. Got an ambulance driving behind me. Let me think about it. So probably, okay. So what happened was you guys saw that fish I broke off, right?
No, we saw the 12 ouncer you caught in the back of the pocket right after that. You had mentioned it, but we heard you say that, and then we saw Seth lose his almost at the same time. Okay.
So I lose that one, and I kind of all day just had this feeling like, dude, Seth is such a good fisherman. Both Seth and Jackson. Honestly, that whole field was.
You had to face 3 really good anglers in your bracket matchup.
Yeah. All of those guys were excellent anglers, and Seth was especially consistent. I think he was the only angler other than myself, and I had it by like an ounce, that had 10 pounds the first 2 days. I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was incredibly consistent. So I just had this feeling that maybe it was a little tougher on him, but that I still needed, say, 9 pounds, at least just to have a shot. Really, I wanted 10 to be comfortable, and even that wasn't comforting. So that's just kind of that number that I kind of kept in my head all day long. And then, so I felt like, what did I have? Probably high 7s at the time, something like that, or maybe low 8s. And my smallest fish was, I knew it was a 3-pounder. I had it in my brain. I needed a 3-pounder, 3 or 4, to be really, feeling good. And I roll up on the dock. I break that one off, and I just, in my heart, I knew it was her. It could have been a freaking 13-incher. I have no idea, but in my heart, that was the fish. And I kind of go into this pocket, and I'm all salty and pissed off and angry. And Glenn goes, "Lewis, just so you know, we have Seth's bass track turned off, and yours is still live." That's what I remember him telling me. And the feeling I got from that was, okay, that makes sense. Seth's at, say, 9 pounds, and I'm at, say, 8 something, and they shut his off. That way, if I catch something to overtake, nobody knows.
My God, Glenn.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's what I had in my brain. So I'm like, I had that in my brain on top of the lost fish. I'm just, I need more. I need more. Then I go in the back of that pocket. I'm like, dude, there's going to be a big one back here. And this little freaking micro bites. I'm like, dude, this just can't. I roll up to that next dock, flip in there, catch a 1.5. I'm like, great, but that's still not the one. And then, the day was over, and it was just heartbreak. Everything I said in that little interview was the truth. I mean, it's so funny because everybody's like, did you really think you didn't have it done? I said, no, I didn't think I didn't get it done.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, camera guy. Sorry I let y'all down. Mom, Dad, if you just owe me, I understand. Love y'all.
Yeah, I didn't think I didn't get it done. I knew I didn't get it done. So, yeah, it was wild.
That also makes sense for me why when Glenn said at the reveal, it came down to, 327 or 227, whatever it was, and the last fish of the day, I was like, well, Glenn, you just freaking told him that he won. Like, you just told him that he won because it came down to that fish. And I was like, why is Lewis not more elated? And then so he had already, I was like, dude, what the heck, Glenn? Just turn the page. Just tell him to look at it. Don't say anything.
I watched it this morning and thought the exact same thing. I thought, how did he not know that the number 227 didn't give it away?
Yeah, honestly, it's like you got your grandma's 90th surprise birthday party, and you're standing outside the front door of the house, and you're like, Grandma, there may be people in here. I'm not sure. And you open the surprise. Yeah. It's like, well, you just told her there was people inside. So I was like, no way, he doesn't know.
If you look at me, I think I was just in some like altered state of doom. Like I'm like just
staring at a leaf on the ground, like
yeah. I don't even think what he was saying was entering my ears. Like, I was like, oh, here we go. And he's going to hand me this card. It's going to say you suck. And that's going to be it.
It really needs to say something for the person who loses and not be blank, because Seth was like, flipped it over and was like,
I saw that.
Oh no. And then you're like, no way, you're lying to me. And Seth's like, wait, I got a blank paper. And then so it was a very, and every single thing it's like that. Tristan McCormick was down by 10 pounds last year, comes back and wins by 3 ounces. That 2.5 pounder that you caught, the second one of the day, the actual 2.8, you had a 2.9 prior, that 2.8 gave you the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then you obviously cold up by 2 ounces, and then you cold up by 3/4 of a pound with your last 2 coals. So what, just any final thoughts? Kyle, do you have anything for Lewis? Because it was just a very fun week. I honestly like the way Lewis's year went, because the team of the year showed that you had the AOY points factor, but then the bracket is kind of like, it is the classic for y'all, because it's 3 days of pressure cooker. You got to be better than anyone else every day. And that simulates what the classic's like on a very, very small scale compared to it. But you kind of got both styles, Mr. Consistent versus I got to go out and win, because if I get second today, I could lose to the guy who I'm facing.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. And honestly, I still feel like I don't have that like winner kind of in me. So that's why I think this is even more kind of like mind blowing. It's like, well, yeah, Lewis, this isn't how you fish. It makes sense that you lost. So like just the whole thing is really mind blowing to me. But yeah, it's been just I mean an incredible year, and yeah, I was talking again, just to back up real quick. I was talking to my buddy Logan the other night, and he was like, dude, we're great buddies, so I know this wasn't the case, and not to take anything away from you or anything like that, but like, do you realize that if you wrote a book on your year and tried to write a better story, that you couldn't? And I was like, yeah, I do. So it's just surreal. It's amazing. And I just really hope, my kind of little like message about, just hope and keeping kids striving to do it. I hope that's just something that everybody gets out of it.
Well, I cry every time the classic champion's crowned, because I know what goes into that for them, and probably the stories of each angler and what they've had to persevere through, the demons they had to get over to do it. And I started to cry when you guys are idling in. Tommy had to do the pickup for me, because I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, they both don't believe they won. And then I saw the way your dad was so freaking proud of you. And I know if I had the chance to be in the bracket and my dad would have been there, he would have been so freaking proud of me. And that stuff chokes me up more than anything, because I know those conversations of like, do you think you can do it, son? And it's like, dude, I think I can make this fishing thing work. And all those conversations that happen, or, hey, I need $50. I gotta get gas at the tournament and I'm out, and that kind of thing. Those things happen. And so when I saw the family and your friends and the roars of your buddies, it really takes a special individual to cheer for someone else, even if it's their friend, after they lose. And to see Michael cheer for you, and to see your family and friends cheer for you, man, those moments like that, it is not the firsts and the 26th and the 11th that we do it for. We do it for people who care about us to be proud. Like that's the thing. And so when seeing that all culminate like that, it was like, this is a moment.
It really was. It was special. And I just, like you said, I mean, that is exactly why we do it. And honestly, that my favorite part about this whole thing really genuinely has been that, like, everybody, obviously there's a number of people back home in Jersey and all that, but all of my like kind of Charlotte people were able to be there and see it. It was just so special.
Kyle, do you have anything for Lewis before we let him go?
Just one last congratulations, man. Like I said, it's been a pleasure to get to see it in person this year, and obviously couldn't be any more happy for you and proud of you. And I truly mean this. I cannot wait to see how next year unfolds and get to watch you at the Classic. And I think I speak for Ronnie and myself both. Just really looking forward to that.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. And this has been awesome, guys. This has been a blast. I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Well, we don't get the chance to make up nicknames very often. Normally we have to leave that up to Dave Mercer and he makes up the nicknames. But if your nickname isn't Mr. Illuminati, then I don't know what it is, because Lou Monetti, I mean, if you just put it all together, it just sounds like it's meant to be. I mean, I don't know if you saw any triangles out there on the water that you were like, it's meant to be. It's the Illuminati. But Louis Monetti, UNC Charlotte, putting that school at the top of the fishing game this year with Team of the Year and the bracket championship spot in the Classic. I thought we were going to probably have a discussion after you hung up, Louis, but I'm going to end the show with you with us. Once again, 2022 Strike King Bassmaster College Series Classic bracket champion presented by Lews. Louis Monetti, he's going to the Classic. He's going to all 9 opens. We appreciate you joining us, man.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really hope we get to do it again sometime.
Most definitely.